Thank you. This session is going to be a little bit different than the last session. For those of you who were in the last session, I did most of the talking. I did most of the work, really. This session, I'm going to do a little bit of talking at the beginning, and then you're going to do the work. Okay? Fair enough? So we're going to be talking about figuring out where you want to go and how you're going to get there. This is the agenda. We're going to talk first about knowing what your options are, which includes building and leveraging your network, seeking exposure across the functions in whatever organization you're in, so you're not just known by your own little team, and developing what some people call a personal board of directors, which we'll talk about as an alternative to the classic mentoring that we've all heard about. Then we're going to move into what will be a critical choice for many of you as you pursue your careers in technology. And that is, do I stay technical or do I move into management? And for each of you, there may be different pressures at different times. And so it's important to understand what really is important to you. And then finally, we're going to do some planning in a different way than you might be used to. It's called looking down from the mountaintop, and I'll tell you about that when we get there, okay? So starting with networking. Why is this important? Why is it important to build a network of support? Well, you benefit from learning from other people and what they've done. You can bounce ideas off other people for how to navigate in the same corporate culture that you're in, because every company, every organization is different. And they each have their own culture that it's important for you to know. It can help you increase your success in the role that you're currently in. It can also help you get support for the initiatives that you want to pursue or that you want to lead. Most important of all might be that it helps you build relationships that make work and life both meaningful and provide real support. There's a study There's a study that was done at the Gallup organization that indicates, of all things, one of the most important things to have for job satisfaction is a best friend at work. So be on the lookout for one. So it's important to build your network. But things get in the way. It's hard to find the time to be proactive about building your network. We are often uncomfortable asking other people for help because we've been told, I don't know about you, but I was told never to impose on anyone when I was a kid. Never impose on people. That's a lesson that, when learned early, is very hard to break. You might be building relationships in your personal life, but not at work. I would highly disagree with this as a philosophy. But what else? What has gotten in your way when you try to build a network, or when you've thought about building your network of support? What's gotten in your way?
Well, I think some people are more receptive than others, so if you come across one person who's just really not into it, it could dissuade you.
Totally.
Keep in your mind that there are people out there that you need to search elsewhere.
Right. So salespeople learn this early, and they actors learn this early, performers. I have a daughter who's a comedian. You've got to learn this. You're going to hear no a lot. And so don't let the first no slow you down. Often when we get to a stage in our life where we're starting to have babies, it's just so overwhelming that time, not having the time, becomes paramount. And we pare everything from our lives except what we consider to be truly essential. Just don't use these as excuses. It's really important to build your network. So also, I've been told that some people resist networking because they feel like it's about politics, especially not networking like meeting people out here who come from 100 different companies, but networking within your own company or organization. Some people resist that because it feels like political. It really is about reaching out and showing interest in other people, offering and asking for help, and building strategic communities of support. Think about how good that sounds. And those of you who were in the previous session in this room know that if you want to make sure you get heard, and if you want to get the feedback that'll let you know if you're striking the right balance between being liked and being respected, that having that kind of strategic community of support that you can rely on and trust becomes really important. So, how do you develop your network? First, you do have to make it a priority. It has to show up on your to-do list. Not build my network, but have coffee with so-and-so, right? Those things have to show up. You have to make the time because it will never make itself. When you do have that coffee with so-and-so, come prepared, especially if you're networking with someone who's at a higher level of the organization than you are. Make sure you know what it is that you want to ask and what it is you want to communicate. Have an objective, build that relationship. That's what's so important. You can't just go in, sit down for coffee and say, here's what I need. Can you help me with this? It's really about taking the time to build the relationship. And maintain the relationship. So this is not the only person, but I worked with a man at my last company. We were both vice presidents of human resources in that company, and we both left the company at about the same time. And we were going to stay connected. And so I reached out to him and we would have lunch, but I noticed that he would only contact me when he wanted something. So the first couple of times you're busy, everybody's busy, and that made him think of me, and so, okay, fine. But when it became the only reason I ever heard from him was because he wanted something, I stopped reaching out so much. It's really got to be a relationship, and you've got to maintain the relationship through this kind of give and take. It's got to be valuable to both people. Okay. So make it a priority. Be curious about what matters to other people. I just said be intentional, come prepared, but don't be all about just what you want to get. Listen openly to the other person who you're building a relationship with. Be curious. Listen generously, not judgmentally. We're trained from very early on to be very judgmental, to make judgments all the time. I understand that the CIA can train us to make instantaneous judgments even faster than we do. When you first saw me, you made judgments about me. I don't know if they were positive, negative, or neutral, but I guarantee you did. So listen generously, not judgmentally. Be open and candid about sharing your ideas, your experience, your suggestions. And at the same time, then you can ask for what you need from the relationship. So it really is a relationship we're talking about. Finally, this is imperative. You will not be able to maintain a network of support unless you treat confidential information confidentially. You know, people open up. You've got to respect that. You're going to open up to them. You're going to hope they respect that. Okay? Any questions about building your network? Why it's important? How you might go about it? Yeah. Sorry, in the back, and then Price. Yeah. Well, so the question was about how do you build a network with people senior to you in the organization, because you might feel like you don't have anything to offer them. I teach a class. It's a 6-month leadership program for high potential women who are doing well in their organization, but they're not executives yet. And one of the things that I ask them to do is to set up at least 3 informational interviews or networking interviews with executives at the very top of the organization. Give them a set of questions to start with, and then have them come up with what kinds of questions do you want to ask. People love to be asked about their career and how they got to where they are, and what they think about as a leader, and what does that take? And what does that take in this organization? Because I'm new to this organization. So I wouldn't pick people randomly just because of their titles, and I might not start with the people who are, in the C-suite. But if you wanted to pick someone someone at your manager's level, who is in a different part of the organization or a different part of your organization, and ask them because you want to understand the company better, and you want to understand how to be make as much of a contribution as you possibly can. And what you have to offer is a newcomer's eyes and a newcomer's perspective. And if you start by asking about how they got to where they are and what their choices were, I wouldn't worry quite as much about what you have to offer. But you can always say, is there anything I can do for you? And I would invite that. Okay? Price, did you have a question?
Yeah, I guess that was maintaining the relationship, especially with someone that's more senior than you. Like, for example, I don't have trouble, reaching out to network with someone that's more the maintenance piece. Like, I might meet someone and know, I'd love to stay connected with them because they might be a great person to speak with in a couple of years based on a goal I have. But from the maintenance perspective, I don't always know the best way to maintain it if I don't feel like I'm a relevant person necessarily for them to regularly speak with, especially if they're busy, but I know they would be great to stay connected with.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess finding an authentic way to stay connected. So like you said, your former coworker who only reaches out when he wants something, not do that, but I don't necessarily have stuff I want to talk about with them now.
So if the person is in your organization,
either internally or externally, but great.
You can send them an article that you think they'd be interested in based on your conversation with them when you met them. If it's Arianna Huffington, oh gosh, who knows? We've all had the same experience with her here, but it was a very, very tangential one. If it's someone who you've spent time with, then you can reference that time. Yes.
Whenever I reach out to somebody that I'm impressed by or intimidated by, I try to find out like what are some of the challenges that they're facing at that level that they are. And like my example before, this person was looking to hire someone for which I was not a good fit, but then I knew of a hiring event where a lot of those people were there, and so I sent them the information and I made the connection happen. And
Fantastic.
he ended up hiring somebody.
That's fantastic. Now, being a connector is an amazingly powerful thing. And if you have the personality to do that, there was an incredible story by Malcolm Gladwell in the New Yorker a number of years ago about a woman in Chicago who was this amazing connector. It's like she didn't have specific skills or talents herself, but she did just what you did and put people together she collected people and put them together so that they would both get something out of it. And she was like the most powerful person in Chicago for many years. Not that she was power hungry, but that's how she was. People would just do anything for her because she helped them so much. That's a fabulous example. So think about being a connector. Okay? Any other questions? All right. So another thing that's really important is to learn the business. If you want to have a future in an organization and a company that you're in, learn about more than just the small group that you're a part of. Connect again, but not people this time necessarily, is connect what you do to and what your team does to the goals of the organization. How is your team making that organization successful? And what would be missing if your group were gone, were not in the company? That's your purpose. So understanding by reading whatever you can to understand the company and the industry that it's in, learning from, I don't know if you're familiar with all hands meetings, but often a senior person in an organization, vice president and above, maybe sometimes in big organizations, directors and above, they'll have a quarterly meeting of their whole organization to go over business results and to talk about what's coming. And those are great opportunities. I know people skip those. You should never skip an all hands meeting. It broadens your perspective. It tells you what the people higher in the organization think is important. So take advantage of those. Get to know people from outside of your own group, outside of your own function. If you're in a part of the organization that touches a lot of other functions, it's easier than if you're an engineer and you only work with other engineers. But it certainly is possible. And then again, connect your work to your company goals. Make sure you understand that you're part of a bigger focus, a bigger objective. If you can get exposure to the larger organization, that's great. So look for projects that you can get assigned to that involve people from outside of your group. Involve people from other parts of the company, if possible. If there is something that's not going well, and you can step in and be part of a team that affects a turnaround, saves it, that's great for your exposure. If you can find ways to present results or present initiatives or present ideas beyond your own manager and your own peers, if you can get the opportunity to do that for your manager's manager and your manager's peers, you're getting more visibility. All of this helps with your learning the business and being known in the business, which helps you be the person who's thought of when an opportunity arises. Okay? And I mentioned a personal board of directors. You've probably heard about mentors, yes? Have any of you had a mentor? Very fortunate, if it's been a good relationship. Can or cannot? Well, I think it depends on how strictly you are defining the concept mentor, because if you look it up, you will find definitions that say it has to be someone who is not in your direct chain, or it can't be your own boss. In my experience, one of my very best informal mentors was also one of my very best bosses. I learned a tremendous amount from him. He championed me. He told me what I needed to know when he needed to. I could get negative feedback from him and know that it was coming from a place where he wanted me to be my best. Right? So he was a great boss, and I consider him a mentor as well. But it depends on how strictly you want to define it. I don't think it has to be defined that strictly. Does that help? Okay. So, but at any rate, they can be hard to find. Now, there are some companies that have formal mentoring programs that works out. Sometimes it works out well. Sometimes the chemistry is just not there, So if you can find a mentor, sometimes, you might have a former boss who you can still tap into and have that person be a mentor. But they can be very hard to find. And as you see on the slide, there are studies that show that a single mentor is often not the right answer for everybody, because a single mentor will be coming from his or her own perspective, and it's a unique perspective, but you may have needs that are broader than that person's area of expertise. So a newer model is to identify different individuals with different skill sets. There may be somebody who just knows how to get things done in the organization. They cut through the bureaucracy like a hot knife through butter, right? That person can be really valuable if you've got an initiative that you want to push through the organization. If you want to develop your influence, find somebody who has a lot of influence, right? And use that person as a part of your board of directors. There are going to be technical people who can be part of your board. There are going to be management people. There are going to be friends who see you in the workplace and can give you feedback about how you come across in meetings. There are all kinds of people. So it's not like a board of directors that sits down once a quarter and talks about you. They never have to meet. But don't necessarily feel like you have to get everything, all the support from your boss and maybe one other person who's a mentor. And you can be part of the board of directors, personal board of directors for other people as well. I would encourage it. How many of you have thought about this, even at an early stage in your career? Am I going to want to stay technical, or am I going to want to move into management? Anybody? Okay. It's a very real decision for a lot of people, and there are reasons to go in one direction or the other. So, technical, well, you got into this arena because it's technical and you love that kind of work. You may be comfortable doing the technical work. There are people who don't want to move into management because they don't want to be judged by the product, other people's work. They just want to be judged by their own work. And so they stay technical. And then on the bottom, sometimes women are pushed from the technical role into a management role. I recently was coaching a woman who was a high-level team lead in a technical group. She was the only woman in that group. Her manager was a fellow, which was the highest level in the technical arena in that organization. He hated to manage. He started giving her all the management responsibilities. He finally decided, you should really be a manager reporting to me. That would be. So she was feeling pushed out of her technical role into management role because she was good at, caregiving. Be very careful of that. That's not the reason to move into management. Some of the reasons that are that you might want to move, in some organizations it is a path to promotion. And it gives you generally more information about the business because you're getting that from a higher level of management. It is good experience that some people want to have to learn how to manage others. And it helps you develop your influence and leadership skills. So if all of those are things that you desire, then by all means, think about transitioning into management. Yes?
In a previous session elsewhere, someone talked about how the technical ladder and management ladder are two different ladders. And I think it's pretty well understood what the management ladder looks like because we can see what that looks like. But what is it like? Where does the technical ladder go? And if you wanted to stay in that track.
Okay, so that was my build right here was does your company have a dual career ladder? Some of them don't. And if there's no formal dual career ladder, then you'll find people moving into management even when they shouldn't, just because they want to be promoted. And that's the only way they could see. So if you've ever had a manager who's a terrible manager who hates doing all the things that they're supposed to do as a manager, it may be because they went into management because they wanted to get promoted. I have been I was at a company, Synopsys, which is a software company in Mountain View. And they have a robust dual career ladder so that published are what it takes to get to every level in both on both tracks, the management and the technical. And when you get to a director level in management, it's equivalent to a principal engineer or something like that. And when you get to a vice president level, it's equivalent to a fellow. And that means by equivalent, it means it's the same grade, it's the same salary structure, it's the same bonus plan. So when you have that, then it's a true choice. And so I can't tell you about all companies. I was at a company that had a very robust dual career ladder. And they had very strong technical people who stayed in the technical realm because of that. And they got to benefit from that. So, but it's really a choice. And I don't want you to be forced into one area because you're a woman. Okay? I want you to make that choice. So understand what goes into each of those directions. Understand what your company offers. If you don't know, are you employed now?
Yes, I am.
Okay. If you don't know whether your company has a dual career ladder or how it works, you can ask your manager, you can ask your HR representative, and they should be able to tell you so that you make an informed choice. Mhm. And held in high esteem, I'm sure. So there are various ways to do it, and you need to find out what your company does. But you all need to be aware of this, and so that you can make the right decision for the right time in your career. It's also possible, especially for technical people, to move in and out of management as long as you keep your technical skills up. There are some people who try management and decide, you know what? I really don't like that. I really do only want to be judged on my own work, not everybody else's. So, okay, that's a decision that a lot of you will have to make in your careers. Here's what I want you to do now, and I'm going to ask you to you're going to want to jot some of this stuff down. So I think there's a notes section in your agenda if nothing else. I will keep the slide up here for you. Often when we think about what do we want to be when we grow up, we might have a goal that's out there a ways, but we have no idea how to get there. It's like we're standing at the bottom of a mountain looking up at the top, and there are probably multiple paths that we can take, but we can't see them from where we are. So I'm going to ask you to imagine it could be 5 years from now. It could be 10, 15, 20. Whatever time frame you want to take. It'll be easier if it's 5 years. You may have a better idea. Although there may be some of you in the room right now who know that 20 years from now you want to be CEO, right, of a technology company. And so you could do that if you want. You could go with that. But so imagine it's a few years from now, and you are where you want to be career-wise. So 5 years from now, I want to be, right now I'm an engineer. 5 years from now, I want to be a manager of a team of engineers. Let's say that as an example. So imagine yourself on the summit at the very top of a mountain that represents your path to success. You're at the top of the mountain, you're looking down, you can see the path you came up. You can see where it bends and twists. You can see all the way to the bottom. What I want you to do is identify the step, not where you are now at the bottom of the mountain, but from the top of the mountain, identify the step just before you reached where you are now. So if 5 years from now I want to be a manager of a team of engineers, maybe the step just before that is I'm a lead engineer, right, in a group. There's another manager, but I'm the lead engineer. Well, how would I get from being a lead engineer to being a manager of engineers? How might I get there? So it's looking at what was the last step before this one, and how can I get from there to here? And then you repeat that. Well, okay, if I was a lead engineer, and how did I get to be a manager of engineers? Well, I took some courses on managing people. I had some work that I did on projects that gave me the experience of leading others. I got recognition for that. You know, those are the things that I did as a lead engineer, and then go backwards from there. So before I was lead engineer, I was maybe, a senior engineer. And I had responsibility for more than just my own work. I was responsible, whatever it is, go all the way back to where you are now, that way. So starting from the top of the mountain, instead of starting from the bottom, here I am, I've just gotten my first engineering job. How in the world am I going to become a manager in 5 years? Start from the top instead and work your way backwards. It gives you a completely different perspective. And you know what? It doesn't have to be cast in stone. You can change it. But at least you'll have a way of looking at a career trajectory that's not always 5 years out. Okay, I'll give you a few minutes and I'll stop talking. Because I want you to be sure to be able to take a break and get to the next keynoter on time. I'm going to stop you here, or at least ask you to pause and find out what insights did you get from looking down from the top of the mountain that you might not have gotten from looking up from the bottom. Yes? More options. Yeah, good. Yes. Wow, look at that. You've got a plan. Good for you. Anything else? Yes.
I kind of mentioned here if I use some of that role, I'm trying to think like how big it's out there.
Oh, that's a good idea too. Great. Okay. So it's always helpful to change your perspective. You see more when you change your perspective. You see things in a different way. And this is a way to give you an opportunity to do that with planning your own career trajectory. So I'll leave the slide up here. If you want to make sure that you have the process written down, I'll leave it up there for you. Use it anytime. Good luck with your careers. I expect to hear great things about all of you, and thanks for your attention.